The World Cup is about a year and a half away, and even though Gregg Berhalter has had more American debuts under his brief tenure than any other coach in U.S. men's national team history, he can only bring 23 players to Qatar next summer. Now look, we both know that a lot's going to happen between now and the World Cup, and a lot of the players that we think are going to go right now aren't necessarily going to go, so we'll probably update this list as we move closer to the tournament. However, I think it's a great exercise just to check out where we are right now and to be able to see what some of the player position battles are as we move forward for the next year and a half. All that and more on this episode of the Yank Report. What's up? My name is Sam. Welcome to the Yank Report. This show we talk about U.S. soccer and U.S. soccer accessories. All right, back to our 23 for Qatar. Now, first of all, let's start with the goalies. World Cup rosters always feature 3 goalies, so that's what we're going to do here. And keep in mind, it's not just any 3 goalies. It's usually your top 2 guys, and then you bring a veteran, because think about it. If it's the World Cup and your top 2 guys go down, you want that third guy to be a guy that's been around the block for a while. You don't want like an 18-year-old kid to come in. So for us, it's going to be currently Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, and Sean Johnson. These are the 3 goalies that we've really been seeing featured a lot under Berhalter. Now, of course, if this was maybe 2 years ago when we were making this list, I think everybody would have Ethan Horvath on that list, but he's been running into some playing time issues, and he's trying to get out of his club into a different situation. I definitely see Horvath as a guy that can make this squad if he gets some regular playing time. Moving on to right back, and I think everybody knows the 2 names who are going to be on this list. It's going to be Serginho Dest and Reggie Cannon. Now, we all thought that Cannon was on a trajectory to really maybe get a transfer and really move up in Europe, but he's kind of stagnated a little bit in Portugal. Of course, the big name on everybody's list is going to be Brian Reynolds. He just made that big money transfer to Roma, and if he starts to see significant playing time over there, really just any playing time at all, he's definitely going to be competition for Reggie Cannon unless Cannon really starts to step up his game. Let's move on to center back. It's going to be a spot where we're going to be taking 4 players, and I know this is a big concern for a lot of American fans because, you know, this is a spot where we're really looking for somebody to step up and be that second starter next to John Brooks, and we've really yet to see it. Of course, my 4 names are going to be John Brooks, Aaron Long, Mark McKenzie, and Matt Miazga. And I know missing from that list, I can hear you guys screaming from your keyboards right now, is where is Chris Richards? And the answer is, I think he's going to get there, but currently right now, we're waiting to see if he can establish himself for Hoffenheim. If he can do that, then of course he's going to be on this list. I'm just saying right this second, I think this is who Berhalter would take, and I wouldn't be able to blame him for that. We just haven't seen enough Richards. Moving on to left back, of course, I just made a left back video about Anthony Robinson and Sam Vines and some of the other guys that are vying for that spot. So my 2 guys are going to be currently Anthony Robinson and Sam Vines. I think those 2 are really going to duke it out to see who's going to be the starter. But the big question mark is George Bello. George Bello, the Atlanta United left back, has all the talent in the world, just a ton of ability. He's been hampered by injuries and some other things. He's got a ton of upside, so he can potentially crash this party and be the left back in 2022, but we're still waiting to see it from George Bello. Moving on to defensive midfielder, and this is a position that I'm a little concerned about just because I'm not 100% sure who it's going to be. I know Tyler Adams is the top guy, and he's one of the first names on the team sheet for me. But behind Tyler Adams, I'm a little concerned. I think right now, Berhalter would lead towards Jackson Ewell. We've seen Ewell a lot in U.S. men's national team camps under Berhalter. We know what he can do. He can hit those long diagonals, and he can pass the ball really well, but he lacks some defensive muster. And I think looking at this team, I really want to see a player who can come in if the U.S. have a lead in maybe like the 60th minute or the 70th minute, just bring another defensive midfielder on the field. I don't think Ewell is that guy. For that reason, I'm really excited about Johnny Cardoso, the young Brazilian. He's 19 years old, and he's a bit of a mystery for U.S. men's national team fans. I've probably watched half an hour of him total playing soccer on the field and then a handful of compilation videos. But from what I've seen, I really like his ability to just pass the ball around the field. Of course, you know, he's a Brazilian. He plays in the Brazilian league. Of course, he can move the ball, but also he can put in a crunching tackle, at least from the brief minutes that I've seen. And I'm excited to see what he can do. I think that he's a better option than Ewell for that second defensive midfielder position. Another player that I'm interested in, possibly for the 6th position, is the Colombiano Andres Perea de Medellin. He's a really interesting player for Orlando City. me just brings a ton of energy, kind of reminds you of like almost a Weston McKennie type of engine, but not, of course, not Weston's ability, but he brings that to the table. He can play 6, he can play 8, so he's got some versatility to him. It's going to be interesting to see. He's also 20 years old. It'll be an interesting battle to see who wins that number 2 spot behind Tyler Adams. Another player I'm sure people are going to ask about is Owen Otasowie. He's the Wolves player, and I think ultimately he's going to be a center back. That's probably where he projects at, because he's just such a big player and he's got a ton of athleticism and he can put in a tackle. We'll see how that develops, but I don't think he's in competition for this 6th spot. Moving on to the center mids, the 8/10 role, and I think in this position, versatility is going to be very important. Berhalter likes a system where players interchange a lot. We're looking for guys who are comfortable playing multiple positions and doing a lot of different things. My 4 guys in the central midfield role are going to be, of course, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Sebastian Lletget, and Brenden Aaronson. Now, Aaronson's the 4th guy on this list. I've really liked what I've seen from him at Salzburg so far. He brings a ton of energy every time he plays, and he can do a ton of different things. He's been playing on the wing. He's been playing inside. He can put in tackles. He can counterattack. He can counter-press. He can kind of do it all. Another potential player on this list is Andres Pereira. He's just on the bubble in my list, but I'm excited to see what he can do moving forward. I love his athleticism. I love his ability on the ball. Another guy who is out on the bubble who could definitely take this position by storm is Paxton Pomykal. Of course, Pomykal had that fantastic U20 World Cup, but it seems like he's been injured ever since. Despite that, he's still widely regarded as one of the best midfielders in MLS. With him, it's just about playing time. If he can get on the field and stay healthy, the sky's the limit for Pomykal, and he can absolutely be a part of this 2022 World Cup roster. Moving on to the winger position, and once again, we have a ton of talent in this position, but we can only pick 4 names, and my 4 names are going to be Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Tim Weah, and Jordan Morris. A few interesting things about this particular player group. People are wondering if Gio Reyna is going to play centrally or play on the wing. I think he's going to be playing on the wing, but regardless, I think Berhalter is going to call him as part of the winger position pool, so that's how he'll be considered on the depth chart. That's what I'm getting from what I've seen Berhalter say in interviews and how he's played him in the November friendlies and whatnot. Of course, that could change, but that's what I'm thinking right now. Timo Weah is another player. People think he might be playing forward. Lille playing some of the best soccer in Europe right now, so Weah is struggling to break into the team, but in his limited minutes, he's putting up a ton of numbers, both goals and assists. Paul Arriola is a player that I think any coach would love to have on his team. He will give you 110%. He will run until he dies. He will do whatever you ask of him. He will run up and down the field. He will play right back. He'll play right mid. He'll play center mid. Unfortunately for Arriola, his deficiency is his technical ability. He's not a fantastic passer of the ball, and he's not a fantastic dribbler. He's not really great at taking players on. I think on this particular team, having strong technical ability is going to be very important for the way Berhalter wants to play. I see a lot of what Paul Arriola does in Brenden Aaronson, and I'm wondering if Brenden Aaronson is on the roster, is he not just sort of the same thing that Paul Arriola does, except a better technical player and kind of a better all-around soccer player? Last but not least, and I think the moment you guys have all been waiting for, the striker position. Now, we've seen a ton of strikers audition for the role of the striker for the U.S. men's national team, but Berhalter can only bring 2. There's only 2 roster spots left in the 23, and for that reason, I'm going with some kind of tested players that I think are playing at a high level right now that Berhalter trusts, and that is Josh Sargent and Gyasi Zardes. Of course, Sargent hasn't had really any great games for the national team yet, but he's had a full season of starting for Werder Bremen under his belt in the Bundesliga against some high-level competition. And I think it's only a matter of time before Sargent turns good. I think that if he gets put on this national team with so many quality players around him, he'll really be able to light it up. Zardes, I know, is a guy that a lot of you don't want to hear his name anymore, but he's definitely a guy that Berhalter trusts. He has a long history with him from the Columbus Crew, and he's played a lot of minutes under him during his brief tenure as head coach of the national team. So I think if Berhalter had to call in a 23 right now, Zardes would be on it because he just trusts him. Now, that being said, there's a ton of guys fighting for this position. Matthew Hoppe has been getting a ton of minutes for Schalke recently, and of course he had that 3-game stretch or whatever. I don't recall what it was, but I think it was 5 goals in 3 games or something like that. Since then, he hasn't been scoring as many goals, but he's still been getting minutes. And You know, he had a lot of deficiencies whenever we first saw him, and I think little by little he's getting a little bit better in a lot of all these categories, and adds those parts of his game in with his runs in behind and his finishing ability, then he can be a starter on this team. Another player with question marks is going to be Sebastian Soto, a player that a lot of you guys are really excited about. He's in Norwich City right now playing for their youth team. Of course, Norwich is probably going to get promoted to the Premier League next season, and what happens with Soto at that point is anybody's guess. But if Soto becomes a Premier League striker that's getting even, minutes every now and then, that would be huge, and he would shoot up the roster depth chart. Daryl Dike is another player that we're all excited about. Of course, he recently got a loan to the championship, but he's likely going to be coming back to MLS for this season. A big season from DK will keep him right in contention. Jesus Ferreira is a guy that's gotten some minutes under Berhalter, and people are really excited about. He's sort of the exact opposite of Matthew Hoppe, whereas Hoppe kind of plays right up against the center backs and looks for runs in behind. Ferreira is a guy that's always going to drop in and look to combine. The issue with Ferreira, of course, is that he's not really playing striker for FC Dallas. He's not playing a whole lot at all for FC Dallas. So we'll see what happens this season if he starts getting minutes there, if he starts getting more minutes, period. But this striker position is obviously not done and dusted. There's going to be a whole lot of competition to see who ultimately shakes out as the top guy for this striker. And it could even be Tim Weah. We don't know. I don't love Tim Weah as a striker. I don't think he quite has the finishing ability. I think he's better as a winger because he can combine more, and it's not as crucial for him to finish as many chances. But I don't know. There's so many uncertainties with the striker role. Maybe Weah just becomes undeniable, and you have to put him in that position. We'll see. We have a year and a half. But as it stands, that's my 23, and I know you guys have a lot of disagreements with me. So please let me know in the comment section what I missed, what I messed up, and give me your hottest hot takes. I want to hear them all. Thank you guys so much for watching. My voice is getting raw from all the talking that I just did. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report.